Hi, my name is Antonia Padilla. I'm a transgender woman. I identify with she and her. I'm of Mexican descent. I'm very proud of that.
My name is Brad Veloz. I'm a queer Chicano. I live in San Antonio, but originally from Corpus Christi, Texas.
My name is Rosie Salazar, and I am a Latina lesbiana. I am a gender-bending butch dyke.
My name is Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez. I'm a judge here in Bexar County, and I preside over Bexar County Court at Law number 13. I self-identify as Mexican-American lesbiana, and I'm originally from Brownsville, Texas.
Hello, chulos and chulas. My name is David Zamora Casas. I'm an artist working in San Antonio since 1985 under the pseudonym Nuclear Meltdown. I believe I'm gender fluid. I also identify with the word Chicano, Latinx, Tejano, Americano, and specifically Mexicano.
Since childhood, I've known that I was a girl since I was very, very young, and of course, growing up in the '60s, you know, nobody knew about transgender people. As far as living my true self without having to, you know, switch from my work clothes to my at-home clothes, I think that started around probably in 2000.
I think I've known I've been queer since I was about 5 years old, but I didn't come out till almost 40 years.
I began to realize that I was Latina lesbiana very early on. I'm going to start with the age of 5, when I was always asked to play the boy role when we played doctor or house. I was always asked to be the husband or be the doctor, and just never played with dolls, always played with cars. It's hard for me to pinpoint when I started to identify because it's always been a lifelong process.
I think it was a process. It wasn't like one day I had an epiphany. It was something that was gradual. It probably started about the age of 20, and it culminated with me coming out to my mom at about the age of 26.
I can't tell you when I came out, though I think Bette Midler had something to do with it. There was something about me that forced me to use a magic marker to dye my sister's Barbie's blonde hair black. I knew that I liked playing with dolls, and I knew that I liked nature, and I knew that baseball and football weren't really my thing.
Well, I've always fully embraced being trans. However, because I was a news photographer, I had to live, you know, according to society, and that meant, you know, appearance-wise, it meant, you know, looking like a man, even though I wasn't, and I knew I wasn't, and I hated the clothes, and I hated pretending to be a man because I wasn't, and I felt like I was lying. And the funny thing about that was everybody loved it. You know, people loved the lie. And then when I finally said, hey, everybody, look, I'm trans, and I've always been trans, and I'm no longer going to masquerade as a man. I'm going to live as my true self. I mean, that was, people hated that. People were like, you know, we don't like the real you, we like the old you, we like the lie. And that was very painful to me.
So I think I really started to come out as a lesbian in my college year when I was about 20. When I realized that the crushes I had in girls, that was not going away. that was always going to be. And so that really challenged everything that I expected for myself in life, because you grow up with a heteronormative model, and so it's like, okay, it's pretty clear I'm not gonna get married to a man, because that's not who I am. So it was rather frightening because I didn't really have a whole lot of role models of what it meant to be a lesbian and to be Chicana, because I didn't know what same-sex relationships looked like. And quite frankly, the first time that I really saw other Latino lesbianas or Latino gay men, I was frightened. And I remember that very clearly. I was in San Jose and I was at this bar called Visions. And it was just all Latinos. So it was like I was freaking out seeing women with women dancing and men with men and hearing Juan Gabriel. And I didn't know what to do with that. And I just sat at the bar.
I think I've been queer all my life, and I can remember and recall as early as 5 years old being interested in seeing men and having interest in men. And so
the women that I grew up with will tell you, we knew you were gay since we were in junior high or high school. And I retort, how could you know if I didn't even know? And so they would say, you know, it's the way you talked, it's the way you walked, it's the way you carried yourself. You were different from us. And we knew you were, you know, you didn't like boys too much, and you didn't have an interest in boys, and I didn't. That gradual process, I dated men and women at the beginning, you know, I'd go out with a woman and the next day I'd go out with a guy. And so to kind of, and it just kind of bled like a red shirt bleeds with the whites in a laundry event, you know, and so it was a gradual, very, very subtle entry into this type of realization. I don't even want to call it a lifestyle. I don't think it's a choice, but it was a gradual acceptance of myself.
Would ask me outright, well, you know, what are you, Latino or gay? And I would say, well, I can't separate being Latino and being queer. I'm a queer Latino, and it was not until the March on Washington, the second March on Washington, that I got to see queer Latinx from all over the country, including Puerto Rico. And to me, that was an incredible experience, very powerful. And for the first time I saw, you know, brown queers from all over being actively involved in letting our voices be heard.
But I didn't want to live a life of being fragmentized, because that's what it was in my 20s, and realizing that I was a lesbian, and that was not a phase. And it was scary, because I come from a very Catholic family and very traditional Mexican family, and I was out speaking Spanish and listening to music that I listened to at home, but it was also kind of very frightening at the same time, because owning your sexuality, you know, wasn't a quick affirmation.
You know, there was this word used among women in my family and my mom's comadres, and now I realize it was a code word, and it was "ahí viene ella con su compañera." And that word compañera was more than a friend. It was kind of like best friend, but you know, they could have said that, su amiga, or, you know, su mejor amiga, but they wouldn't. They'd say su compañera. And so in hindsight, I realized now that was probably a leaning toward, you know, two female spirits that, you know, but there were those conversations that I would hear about, you know, that wasn't right. That's not how we raise our children. It was not what God wanted.
I think that my growing up with emotional security from my parents, my loving family, enabled me to live my total queer self and my Chicano self. And I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by a lot of queer men and later strong intellectual women that helped shape my worldview.
I think my family has always been very, very loving, very supportive, very nurturing. My 4 sisters and my mom were really very caring, and I think that they knew about me and my sexuality, and they still supported me. And to this day, till today, you know, my sisters continue like they're my mom. You know, they're very loving, and I'm grateful for that.
So there were those boundaries put on me on behavioral expectations, definitely by my parents. When I came out to my mom, we were sitting, as we often did, at the dining room table, and she'd had her coffee and her barbacoa taco, and she'd read the paper, on Sunday paper. And I was sitting at the other end of the dining room table. I said, Mom, I gotta tell you something. And it was before I came, I was visiting on a weekend. And by that time I was living with my first living girlfriend, Sonia. And I said, I gotta tell you something, Mom. And I couldn't get around it, and I was squirming, and she couldn't see me. And I said, I'm gay. And then you see her, you know, with the newspaper, and she slowly folds it over, and you can just see her eyes. And she says, tell me something I don't already know. And then she folded the paper back up, and she kept reading the paper. Very nonchalant, she didn't skip a beat. That was my story with my mom. Then she finally got around to having a sit-down conversation, and with her it was, I'm gonna love you no matter what, but I don't wanna see displays of affection in front of me. I don't wanna hear you talking about it. I know it, and now that you know I know it, let's just leave it at that. So that was her attitude. With my dad, there was never a specific day or time. He would say things around me that dads with straight daughters wouldn't say around their straight daughters. I'll give you an example. We were standing, they were visiting me, my mom and dad, at River Center Mall. And if anybody who's gone to River Center Mall knows, you can see all the way across the other side, to the other side of the mall because of the glass, large glass walls. And we see this woman walking at the other side of the mall, and we're both tracking her, and he's standing next to me. And we're both tracking her. She's wearing this gorgeous, like, ivory outfit. She looks like an angel. And we're tracking her, and we're watching her, and we're watching her. And he turns around and he goes, Mira qué cosas nos da Dios. Right? And I looked at him, and I'm like, okay. And those were the kind of unspoken, you know, but he'd make a comment, and I'm like, you know, why would he say that to me?
My coming out story to my dad is he was going to Arizona. We were living in Oregon, and he was asking me about my friend in high school, and said, you know, that's a very special friend, right? And I said, and I was terrified, like, okay, what's my dad going to ask me now? Because I thought he was about to ask me, you know, if I, you know, was in love with her, she was my girlfriend, and I couldn't even say that. I didn't have the words myself, and he basically just said to me, this is the last time I saw him, he basically said, I just want you to be happy. It doesn't matter, I just want you to be happy. Whoever you end up with, I just want you to be happy. My mother came from a very traditional Catholic family, and for her to allow me to go to college even was a big deal. You know, travel, because I competed in speech and debate in high school, to be on my own, you know, was a big deal. And so she was encouraging me to be independent, and kind of said the same things to me. Whatever you end up with your life, just be happy. They were very accepting. It's like, we don't care. We just want you to be happy. And for the rest of after that, you know, it was a process of accepting myself and learning who I was.
A conversation my mother had with my sisters. She had found some Polaroid pictures of my first boyfriend and myself kissing on a Corpus Christi beach. They were playful photos, but my mother found them, and she told my sisters, no le digan que sé que él es así. No voy a querer que él piense que lo voy a querer menos. No le digan que yo sé que él es así. No voy a querer que él piense que lo voy a querer menos. She said, I don't want him to know that I know he's like that. I don't want him to think that I love him any less.
I found out that there were gay bars that had drag shows. So I would always time my visit to come on a weekend and make sure that I could stay at least until a Monday. So I would bring all my clothes, and then on a Sunday evening I would get all dressed up around other people. That's really when I became aware of, you know, the LGBT community.
It was the first march on Washington. We happened to be living in Washington, D.C., and Mike and I went to, we heard about the march, obviously, and so we went with friends, and it was 1979, the first march on Washington. And it was not publicized that much. It was not well attended. It was not a very good representation of the community. And I say that because there were very, very few brown queers that we saw in the march. They were not involved in, they weren't on stage, you know, there were very few marching. And so that was the first time that I really saw, you know, the actual movement. Although I was around back in 1969 when Stonewall happened. I really had thought to myself, I wonder if there were any brown queers involved in what was happening in New York. I was kind of oblivious to, you know, what had taken place, but I just, you know, read that there had been a 3-day riot. I didn't hear about Silvia Rivera. I didn't hear about other queers of color. So I didn't know that we were there.
And there was a lot of organizing going around being Latino, being Latina, and a movement to have a positive image of ourselves as Latino and as gay, or as Latina and as lesbiana, or Latina and bisexual. So it was exhilarating, but there's also a lot of trepidation.
Everybody used to hang out at Olmos Park. And it was very similar to what people did in the cities in Mexico that I visited, which was the Sunday night roll. And it was what happened on Zamora here on the south side, which is kids, young people in cars just kind of cruising up and down the street and playing loud music and just enjoying each other's company, or, you know, amongst other things, there were things going on, you know, now as an adult I'm more aware of. But at Olmos Park, it was, you know, the butches that played touch football, or, you know, the women that came down on their motorcycle. And then there were some men, but there was a guys area over there, and there was a women's part over here, and people were barbecuing, and it was a regular Sunday thing. You know, I want to believe that was a movement. You know, that was a safe space for us at that time. So 2015, June 26th, and that was the whole turn of the tide for our people, to finally be recognized, and that we be allowed to love who we want to love and marry who we want to marry, and it be legitimate.
As a child, all of my role models were women. My mother, my grandmother, my tias, the neighbor ladies.
I think that I did admire, for example, Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez for their work. And then later on, I got to actually meet Silvia Rivera, who was the driving force. And so she, of course, would be someone that I admired, deeply admired.
Growing up, I had a lot of different role models. One of my role models was my Uncle Jesse, who was brilliant, really smart, and just a bundle of energy in working with community. So he was someone that I admire. admire my parents. They were very hard workers. If I were to identify someone who I looked up to who was LGBTQ, I would say it was my baseball coach. But I just looked up to her because she was just so courageous in being her own person, regardless of what people dictated. I mean,
the long-term survivors of HIV, who inspired me the most? The queers that died, the queers that suffered, and the people that helped strengthen our community are no longer with us. So those people are the people that I honor, and I draw inspiration from them.
My generation, it was a hush hush, let's not talk about it. Girl, they are out in force. Teenagers and just showing their pride and showing their colors and without any reservation. And for me, that's heaven, you know, not to have to see them struggle. And hopefully, although the numbers show that we have the highest, you know, suicide rates among our particular sub-community, hopefully that tide will change as well, as long as we're around to show the young people that it's okay to be themselves.
Don't be afraid of anyone, especially yourself. You just got to do it. You got to be happy. You know, you got to live your life the way you see fit. You're old enough now. You're at this point in your life where, you know, you really shouldn't be too concerned about what other people think of you.
But I would encourage someone who is thinking about coming out to seek out the light. You know, go to the people, surround yourself with people that are positive, surround yourself with people that love you, surround yourself with people that do not judge you. And the time will come. You will know when it's the right time. And there is no book on how to come out. So I just want to say, listen to your heart and surround yourself with people and know that your loving, wonderful, beautiful self will come out when you're ready.
And you're not alone. You're not alone in being queer, and being a brown queer, or being part of the LGBT community.
it's a journey. I would tell them to hang in there. There's no right or wrong answers. And it's a journey of self-discovery. It's going to be tough, but it's a beautiful journey. And it's going to be tough and scary times, but moments of happiness.
I think one of our greatest responsibility is to ensure the emotional security of children, to let them be who they are, let them assign their own gender to themselves. And if the boy wants to wear a dress, déjalo. If the little girl wants to wear a Captain America suit, then let her. We have to provide emotional security to our children. And maybe they'll come out in a free and loving way, the way I did.